For those who may be joining us for the first time, we'll just tell you the basics. These are the sichas that the Rebbe spoke to Tzivos Hashem, to the children, and these sichas were compiled in the set of Sfarim der Rebbe Redt Kinder in the original Yiddish. It's also available in Hebrew and English as well, but we learn it in the original Yiddish. And this particular week, Parshas Vayeitzei, it's the Sikha is placed under Vayeitzei because of the connection to the pasuk Ufaratzta, which is a pasuk from Parshas Vayeitzei, but the actual delivering of the Sikha was Chav Ches Tishrei, and as mentioned, this was the second Tzivos Hashem rally of all time. The first one was that Sukkos. This is Tafshin Mem Aleph we're talking about, 1980, not yet 1981, the last few months of 1980. And the second rally was Chav Ches Tishrei. And in fact, in the rally, the Rebbe, we're going to start with Ufaratzta. When the Rebbe mentions Ufaratzta, the Rebbe references Ufaratzta as the song we just sang on Simchas Torah. So, this is really just coming out of Yom Tov, and it's still in the days of Tishrei. Okay. Ufaratzta Yom V'kedma V'tzveina V'negba, and you shall spring forth, jump out, burst out, west and east and north and south. This is what Hashem told Yankov Avinu. Soll sich starken und ausspreiten. That's how the Rebbe translates it. You should strengthen yourself and you should spread out in alle vier Seiten von der Welt, in all four directions of the world. Ma'irav, Mizrach, Tzafon, and Darim. That's what Hashem told Yankov Avinu. In dem ist voran an Anweisung für Kinder in Tzivos Hashem. Now, we know nothing in Torah, in the Rebbe's worldview, is just informational. Everything is instructional. Torah, Malashon, Hera. So even this Ufaratzta, this statement of Ufaratzta, which Hashem is speaking to Yankov Avinu, this is an instruction to every one of us, including and especially the children of Tzivos Hashem. And we're going to see, why does Ufaratzta Yom HaKedma Tzveina V'negba have a special connection to Tzivos Hashem? The Shlichus von Tzivos Hashem, der Eibishten Zarmei, is zu ufton, as men soll sein, offene heit, wie Malach ha'aretz kvede. What's the shlichus of Tzivos Hashem? Is to show in an open way how the world is full of Hashem's glory. Of course, those words are in the pasuk V'hinei, and earlier before this sikha there was the Amiras HaPsukim. Die ganze Welt in alle ihre vier Seiten is full and covered von Eibishten. The whole world in all four directions is full with Hashem's glory. And that's the shlichus of Tzivos Hashem, to reveal this, to show how this is Hashem's world. And Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Up, up, down, down, right, left, all around, here, there, everywhere. That's where he can be found. Es führt sich in alle Armeien, as seine voran verschiedene Abteilungen in jeder Armee. Now, every army, this is the normal way that an army operates, is there are different divisions. That's what we call them, literally divisions in an army. Was jeder Abteilung hat auf sich a gewisse Pflicht und a spezielle Arbeit. Every division has a certain duty and a special work. That's the division of labor. That's how it's done in the army. Gefinnen mir, als die Tzivos Hashem werden geteilt auf vier, keneged die vier Seiten von der Welt. And we actually find that Tzivos Hashem is divided into four divisions, which correspond to the four compass points, the four directions. Well, what are we referring to? I was once, make it sound like it happened so long ago, but maybe a month or two ago, when we, I don't remember how long ago we started doing these weekly classes for the base commanders, but I was talking to Rabbi Weinbaum, and I forgot how it came up, but we were talking about how, everything that the Rebbe is saying here, there's, on one hand, there's such bombshells, they're so radical. On the other hand, it's like, yeah, but this is like basic traditional Judaism. This everything goes back to the original source, right? So Rambam mentioned to me, he says, you know, people think the Lubavitcher Rebbe started Tzivos Hashem. It's not true. Who started Tzivos Hashem? Hashem started Tzivos Hashem. When did Tzivos Hashem start? When the Jewish people came out of Mitzrayim. They were called Tzivos Hashem. And there was a formation to their marching and their encampment in the wilderness. When the legions, that's literally Tzivos Hashem, the legions, the armies of Hashem, would march, and when they would encamp, there was a system. It was organized according to the four compass points, the four directions. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those four directions are, because they're not only geographical designations. They are, of course, also geographical designations. But like everything in the world and everything in Torah, well, everything in the world comes from Torah, there is a spiritual meaning as well to everything. Okay, but on the very simple level, the four divisions of Tzivos Hashem means the four divisions of north, south, east, and west when they were marching and encamping in the wilderness. Okay, let's continue. Das ist verbunden mit Avram, Yitzchak, Yankov und David. Was jeder von sie ist verbunden mit der besonderen Ruach von der Welt. Now, we have another concept that the three Aves plus David, who are also referred to as the Raglei HaMerkava, for feet of the chariot, of the divine chariot. They constitute absolute bittul to Hashem. So the three Aves, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yankov, plus David, they correspond spiritually to what the four directions represent. Avram mit Darim. Avram is Darim. Why Darim? Because, it says actually, Halachan saying, Negba, he was traveling. Negev is Darim, is south. Why is Avram associated with south? Because if you're facing forward, east is called Kadam, which means forward. Right, Yamin, Chesed is south. And then correspondingly, Yitzchak mitzafen. Yitzchak would be the north, because the left, the small, which is Gvura, Yitzchak is Gvura, that would be north. Yankov mit Mizrach. Yankov is Mizrach, is east. Yankov also, in terms of Spherois, is Tiferes. Tiferes is forward, Mizrach. Und David mit Ma'ariv, David is Malchus, and Malchus, the sphere of Malchus, corresponds to Ma'ariv. So we have four directions, geographically speaking. We have four, not Aves, but the three Aves plus David, four of our, I'll call them our forefathers, no pun intended. And they correspond to four spheroids as well. Now, not to leave the girls out of this, also regarding the girls, the girls are specially connected to the Imois, to the matriarchs of our people, of which there are four: Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. They also correspond to the four directions. Now, how does that actually work? Avram and Sarah, they go together as Darim, south, Chesed. Yitzchak and Rivka, they go together on the north. Yankov goes with Leah, because Yankov and Leah are buried together in Maris Machpelah, so they're both east. And David and Rachel go together. Why David and Rachel go together on the Ma'ariv, on the west? Well, first of all, we mentioned Leah and Yankov are buried together in Maris Machpelah. Rachel's buried where? In Beis Lechem. Beis Lechem is the hometown of David HaMelech. It's where Yishai was from Beis Lechem. So Rachel has that connection. And also, as the Arizal says, that Rachel mevaka al beneha, Mama Rachel cries for her children in Golus. Those words are Rosh Tevis Ma'ariv. Not in order exactly, but Rachel mevaka al beneha. Right? You have Rachel's Reish, Mevaka is Mem, Al is the Ayin, and Beneha is Beis. So you have the letters of Ma'ariv, of west. So Rachel and David are on the west. Der Fun is verstandig. As Leut dem ken men teilen die Abteilungen in Tzivos Hashem, Zimetut in Milchemes Vayeitzei, Leut die Anweisungen Meisim von Avram und Sarah, verbunden mit Gemils Chassadim, und so ich meine gehe zu die andere drei, jeder in sein Sach. So here's the practical application, is that in Tzivos Hashem, we have four specializations, four divisions, and they all correspond to one of these four directions, which correspond in turn to one of these four pairs of fathers and mothers, and they also correspond to a particular style of serving Hashem. So the Rebbe says explicitly, for instance, Avram and Sarah is the Kav HaChesed, is Gemilas Chasadim, acts of kindness. And the Rebbe says, and so on and so forth with the other ones, and doesn't explicitly explain what that would mean, but that's for us to figure out. What would it mean to serve Hashem from a Kav of Gvura and Yira? And what would it mean to serve Hashem from a Kav of Tiferes? And what would it mean to serve Hashem from the Kav of Malchus? And if you learn enough Chassidus, that shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. Und wie es wird erzählt in Chumash und in Midrashim wegen die spezielle Meisim, was jeder von sie hat getan. And if you need inspiration, you could go look in Chumash and see the stories about these Aves and Emois, and we could emulate their stories and the lessons that their stories teach us. As we mentioned before, nothing in Torah is simply just informational. It's all Torah Meloshin Hera, it's all an instruction. So if you want to know how to be more like Yitzchak, or more like Rivka, or more like Yankiv or Leah, or David or Rachel, then you go look in the stories about these Aves and Emois. Selbstverständlich, als das meint nicht has verschollen, als jüngerlich seine Nita Seife Mechuyev in die Meisim Tevim, was seinen verbunden mit Sarah, Rivka, Rachel und Leah. Oder meidlich seinen has verschollen Nita Seife viel Mechuyev in die Meisim Tevim von Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv und David. Now, very interesting that Rebbe says here. That doesn't mean chas v'shalom that boys don't have to follow the model set by the mothers, and that girls don't have to follow the model set by the fathers. They do. It almost sounds politically correct, except the fact that it's not politically correct. It's just emes. That although we say, boys want to emulate their fathers, and girls want to emulate their mothers. And when we say fathers and mothers, we're also talking about the Avis and the Emois. However, it's not exclusively that boys want to be like the Avis to the exclusion of being like the Emois, or the girls only want to be like the Emois and don't emulate and try to be like the Avis. Of course, little boys also emulate the holy matriarchs, and little girls similarly emulate our holy patriarchs. So it's not like, so gender, black and white, that it's only boys follow the men and only girls follow the women. Obviously, there's much that we can all learn from both the Aves and the Emois. And so in that sense, there is a certain amount of, can we use the term gender fluidity, right? Because that's a real thing, Look, masculinity and femininity are not as rigid as we make it out to be. Obviously, the way the world has taken it is, we don't even have to discuss. But masculinity is a spiritual concept. Femininity is a spiritual concept. And there are aspects of masculinity that girls emulate, and there are aspects of femininity that boys emulate. And in fact, let me just throw this in here, that when it comes to bringing Mashiach, the Rebbe said, we all, men and women, have to be more feminine. Because men conquer, and Mashiach is not about conquering, it's about nurturing. Because when you conquer the enemy, he could always come back later. But when you nurture the supposed enemy and turn the enemy into an ally, then you win him over to your side. And when Mashiach comes, there's going to be no more opposition, even in potential, because we'll win everything over to the side of Kedusha. Okay. Anyways, just an important thing to remember when you're raising little boys and little girls. Adrabah. Teira zogt, and the Rebbe gives such a simple proof. How do you know that little boys have to also emulate the Amois and little girls also have to emulate the Aves? Very simple. Teira zogt on. Teira commands us. Kabez avicha ve'esim echa. Honor both your father and your mother. Ish imay va'aviv tirou. You should revere both your mother and your father. Man darf und muss abgeben Kavod und folgen sei dem Vater und sei der Mutter. You have to honor and obey both your father and your mother. In the spiritual sense, what that means is we have to look for role models in both the fathers and the mothers. Very simple. Und von dem ist Poshet. As Yingelach darfen ton alle meisin tevim, sei von Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, and David, sei von Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. So boys have to do all the good things that they see in Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, and David, as well as all the good things that they see in Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Und es eich medelach. So too conversely the girls. Darfen ton sai ala meisim tevim von Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Of course the girls have to emulate everything they see in Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, but also sai ala meisim tevim von Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, and David. The little girls should emulate these male role models as well. Okay, let's continue. Mir zen bei a gashmisdike armee. As a mol macht men a Hauptattacke auf ein front. Now you see in an actual army, in the simple sense, that sometimes they make a concerted effort to attack a particular front. Men sammelt ein alle Abteilungen von der Armee auf Menatzech sein ein Front von dem Oiv. They assemble all the different divisions and they concentrate the attack on one front where the enemy is. As is in der Milchama gegen dem Yetzirah. Als von Zeit zu Zeit darf man machen a Hauptattacke, Hauptanstrengung. Sometimes you have to make a concerted effort, an attack or a strengthening of einem von die Fronten von Milchemes HaYetzer and attack one particular front. Zum Beispiel, for example, amol soll die Hauptattacke, die Hauptanstrengung sein in die meisten Tevim, was Teire erzählt, wegen Avram Avinu und wegen Sari Imenu. Sometimes, no matter what division you're in, we're going to all go in a path of Avram and Sarah, which is Chesed. Amol soll das sein in die meisten Tevim von Yitzchak und Rivka, but sometimes all the divisions are going to go assemble on the front which represents Yitzchak and Rivka. Und ich bin to Yankiv and Leah und David Rachel. So too, sometimes we're going to all assemble and focus on the Kav of Tiferes, or sometimes the Kav of Malchus, which correspond to Yankiv and Leah and David and Rachel, respectively. So although we have divisions, you're not going to always exclusively do just what your specialization is, because sometimes there's a special need to get all the divisions together and focus on something that is particularly needed at the time. Okay, let's keep going. It's a long sikha, relatively long for these sikhas. In dem Eifen wie die Abteilungen von der Zava für eine Milchama, sieht man, als viele, wenn man führt eine Attacke auf ein Front, verlässt man nicht die andere Seiten, die sollen bleiben offen, chas v'shalom. Now, military strategy. We just said sometimes you focus on one front because that's the one that's strategically important right now. But you should know, even when we do that and we focus on one front, that doesn't mean we abandon the other fronts, chas v'shalom. That would be a terrible security risk. Euch dorten beschützt man. You still protect the other fronts. Nor der Chilik is, but what's the difference? Was die Hauptanstrengung, die Attacke, is in ein Zeit, Darim, Tzitzofin, Mizrach, Tzimairev. You're always protecting all the fronts. But sometimes you only make a proactive push in one front. So it could be, right now, we're going to focus on Gemilas Chasadim. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to become weak, chas v'shalom, in Yiras Shamayim, which is the Kav of Yitzchak, of Gvura, right? We're still going to protect that front, but right now the push is in Gemilas Chasadim. Der Fun is moving. Euch benegeh zu Tzivos Hashem. Als euch, wenn man macht die Anstrengung in die Meisim von Avram v'Sara l'Dugma, so even when we are giving specific attention, strength to the Avodah of Avram and Sarah, euch dämmelt beschützt man sich von dem Yetzer, euch in die Sachen, was seine verbunden mit die anderen Aves und Yemois und David HaMelech. We're still being careful, we're being vigilant to protect ourselves on the other fronts connected with the other Aves and David. Zum Beispiel, for instance, B'Shas es kommt zu gehen an Oraman. A poor man comes by. Und der Yetzer will einreden, als soll ihm nicht geben, kein Tzedakah, chas v'shalom, the Yetzer Hara tells you, don't give him any tzedakah. Darf dämmelt sein, die Hauptattacke, leut die Anweisung von dem Avram Avinu. So at that, Gemilas Chasadim. So at that point, when the Yetzer Hara is specifically trying to make you not do the mitzvah that is right in front of your face, to give this poor person tzedakah, and you realize that this is the attack, which is strategically crucial right now, and I have to fight on the front of Gemilas Chasadim, so that's where my main fight's going to be. Und die Beschützung in die Inyanim, was seinen verbunden mit die andere Aves wie Yemois, but at the same time, you have to protect the other fronts. Noch ein Beispiel, another example. Wenn es kommt die Zeit von dem Seder Limudim in Cheder oder in Yeshiva. Okay, let's say it's time to learn in Cheder or Yeshiva. Sei bei Jingelach and sei bei Meidlach, and this applies equally to boys and girls. Kommt zu gehen der Yetzer Hara und will einreden, man soll das ablegen auf später. So the Yetzer Hara is going to come and tell you, you don't have to learn right now. Okay, but yeah, we do have to learn, right? It's a time for learning. So that's where the Yetzer Hara is attacking. So it's very clear to me there has to be a very special counterattack in that area, which would be, which kav that would be, if the Yetzer Hara is trying to make me not learn when it's time to learn. So I need to hit him with the kav of Torah is Tiferes, Yankiv, Is dämmelt die Hauptattacke leut die Anweisungen von Yankiv. At that time we have to conduct ourselves according to the life example of Yankiv. Man soll sich ablernen von sein Aufführung, we have to learn from his conduct. Was is gewen a Yeshiv Eihalem, he was the one who sat in the tent. B'Shas Esav is a rumgelaufen in die Felder, Esav was running around in the fields, und vernommen sich mit Tzayed hunting, he was hunting. Wie steht ish der Zeit ish Sade says about Esav, he was a hunter. So at that time, the special Hauptattacke is going to be in that kav, the kav of Yankiv Avinu. Und die Beschützung auf die alle anderen Fronten war seinen angewiesen geworden durch Avram, Yitzchak und David und Sarah, Rivka, Rachel und Leah. But simultaneous to the attack in a particular front, which needs our attention right now, we're going to maintain our care, we're going to maintain protection in those other fronts as well. Just, we're not going to give them such a proactive focus. And so is euch menegeh the andere Aves v'Yemois, and so too regarding the other Aves and Yemois. In other words, we had an example from the kav of Avram v'Sara, which is Gemilas Chasadim, right? When the Yetzer Hara tells you not to give tzedakah when you have an opportunity to do so. So I know then my Hauptattacke is going to be in the kav of Avram v'Sara. Let's say it's time to learn, and I don't want to learn. The Yetzer Hara tells me not to learn. So then the Hauptattacke, again, the focus is going to be on the front of the kav of Yankiv Avinu. And the Rebbe says, and so too with the other two. So you have to figure out what would that mean in the kav of Yitzchak and Rivka, which is the kav of Gvura, which is generally, Yiras Shamayim and Kabbalah soil. Or in the kav of David and Rachel, which is Malchus. Malchus can mean a lot of things. One of the things Malchus is our relationship with others. How we delegate and how we nurture. How we deal with people outside of ourselves. At any rate, this is the structure. This is this magnificent system for organizing the way that we go about our involvement in Tzivos Hashem. So, it's so much. Those who are familiar with the Sikha are obviously familiar with it. But if you haven't seen this before, I think it is absolutely, maybe even if you have seen it before, it's absolutely just a marvel how systemized Tzivos Hashem was. And it wasn't just, let's make a kids group and let's get the kids excited and inspire them. Everything is organized, and everything is organized al pi Torah in a way that goes back to the origins of our people. And it's, there's such depth according to, like Kabbalah. Of course, all of this is, according to the Spherois, and everything about it is just so organized and systematic. And so basically, what does that mean? It means that the Rebbe gave us, a davar shalom. The Rebbe gave us a system that's really honed, it's really perfected, and it's just up to each of us to show up, to find out what the orders are, and to put everything we can for today into each order of the day.